Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, Tucson Acres. So got kind of cruddy weather out today, so I'm gonna be doing a couple projects in the shop. One of them is fixing up these couple sledgehammers and this fireman's axe. I picked this really cool fireman's axe up at an auction, I don't know, about a year ago, and the head is definitely shot on it here. I picked up this handle at a local hardware store. I'm not really pleased with it. It's not quite exact. I don't like the butt. It's a little bit different, but it'll do. And kind of the same thing with these sledgehammers. This one I believe is a 5-pounder and it's really loose here, but I think I'll be able to use what's left of this handle to fix this cheapo Harbor Freight one that got broke the same time this 8-pound sledge got broke, hitting a 1/2-inch pipe into the ground, or a steel rod anyway. We were putting some anchors, duck-built anchors into the ground. So yeah, I hit the steel rod a couple times just inside of the head, and yeah, she's done. So one of the things I've seen recently, well, within the last couple years, and this came right off of Wrangler Star. I wish he did more stuff like this. I really like this stuff. But he gets rid of the lacquer coating that comes on most handles these days. So the axe handle and this smaller sledge handle both have a lacquer coating on it. This one I was able to find, this one's gonna be for the 8-pound, and it's just raw wood, no coatings at all. So I'm really not gonna have to do anything but sand, and I'll put linseed oil on all of these. But to remove these coatings, the last time I did it on a couple hatchet handles, I just scraped it off with a draw blade. And I'm gonna try that on the straight one, but then on the axe handle, this might be dicey, I don't know, where this is gonna be a test. I'm gonna use paint remover. And I'm just gonna coat it, let it sit. By the time I'm done stripping this one off with the blade, the draw blade, this should be set, and we're gonna see what happens to it. And then I plan on just doing the same thing, do a light sanding just to clean it up, clean the bare wood up, and then do a linseed oil on it, and then I'll show you how to put the wedges on as well. So that's where we're at. I'm gonna get the rest of my stuff set up and we'll get to work. I'm just gonna slather it on here, top to bottom. All right, I'm just gonna let this sit here, do its thing. All right, so it was 11:05 when I put that on there. It's only a couple minutes past that now, it's 11:08. Just double check the instructions on the can. It says 15 to 20 minutes for clear finishes. So we'll see how long this part takes and go from there. Now I'm using jaw pads, Vice jaw pads, to keep the handle from getting marred up. And I found it seems to work just fine. And this is just how Wrangler Star did it, and I've tried it and it works really, really good. Just take your drawbar. I like to use the back side of the blade, and you just draw it along, and it basically strips your varnish right off. And obviously you don't want to go tight, and keep your blade angled away from you. You're dragging the blade, not cutting with it, right? So, and it just peels it right off. Seems to do a really good job. Now the straight handle here obviously is going to be a whole lot easier to do than that curved axe handle. But this is really just a test. I don't like these lacquer finishes on my tools. They get slick in the hands. And I just go till I don't really see anything shiny anymore, and then I'll sand finish the rest of it. Good for that side, for the top of that side anyway. All right, just so you can see, this is all the stuff that falls off of it. And here's what it looks like once I get done scraping it. There really isn't much lacquer left on there compared to that. Now we'll flip it around and do the other side. I'll see you guys when I'm done. All right, so peeling off the varnish on the sledgehammer handle is done. This has been, it is now 25, 26 after, so this has been just over 20 minutes. I'm gonna see if it actually did the job or if I need to let it sit over lunch. No, it needs to sit longer, so I'm gonna just let it sit here for a while longer. And hopefully by another half hour or so, I'm gonna take a lunch break, and hopefully by then it'll be done. All right, so it's been, I don't know, hour, 25 minutes, something like that total. I'm gonna go ahead and try to scrape this off here. Win, lose, or draw, it's gotta come off now. Can't really tell for sure yet. Well, it's coming off somewhat, but to be perfectly honest, an hour and a half to do what I did in 15 minutes with just the draw blade probably isn't worth it. Maybe if this stuff was fresher or I used a different type, I don't know. But now I have to go and clean all this crud off of here. Yeah, I definitely am not doing this again. I'll just use the actual draw blade next time because I'm still going to have to draw it anyway to get the extra crud off here. And that's after using a scraper for who knows how long this is going to take. Just so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like here. So it's definitely, it took most of the varnish off, but I certainly wouldn't call it great. I'm definitely going to have to sand it anyway. So this was just an experiment to see how it works. Live and learn, right? All right, so overall it turned out okay. There's still some gunk on here, a little bit of a sheen left over that I want to try to get rid of. And I'll probably just do that with sanding. There's a big old, really nasty chunk down here that just doesn't want to come off, and I'm just gonna sand that off. All right, so now both of our handles are cleaned up and looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and sand them now. I'm gonna start off with a 120 grit on the palm sander here. And then I'll finish both of them by hand with 220. And just a quick shout out to a good friend of ours, a family friend for a long, long time now, military family. She's recovering in the hospital right now, going through some pretty rough surgery, or just went through. I know I texted her a little bit ago, but just know that we're thinking about you, keeping you in our prayers. So good luck. All right, here we go. That is turning out really, really nice. So here's the before sanding. That's after. I know it's hard to get a good idea of what that's like, but yeah, that turned out really nice. And that's just one quick shot with the 120. All right, so just after that 120 sanding, man, these turned out much, much, much better. I almost don't even know if I want to go to a 220. I kind of like the rougher surface. It'll probably help the linseed oil soak in a little bit better, I think. And honestly, I don't really have any marks that I don't like. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to bother going to the 220. Both of these turned out fantastic. I am going to blow them out though with compressed air. I want all the sawdust off of it. And since I've already got the sander out, I'll probably just go ahead and sand this other one right quick. All right, looking good. Now let's prep these other ones. All right, so I usually just take a hacksaw and cut it off right at the head. And then it'll just pound out from the top, or from the bottom. Yep, piece of cake. The ball peen hammer. Grab a drift. There she goes. Me and my infinite wisdom, and I'm gonna do it again too, I glue these in. Probably completely unnecessary. And I truly hate to take this one apart because that looks all original. Man, I'll bet I could just pull these, somebody just jammed some washers in there. I'll bet I could pull them washers out and save that original handle. Huh. Cool. That way, if I ever, I don't know, come across a reason to sell this, I still have the original handle. I'm assuming that's the original handle. It looks like something that would have come with this. It's just really pretty. So we'll save that. I might throw this in the sandblaster right quick, just to, the blast cabinet, just to see if I can find a name on here. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. All right, well, after a quick sandblasting there, all I can find on this thing is forged steel. That's all it says. There's a little, what looks to be a 5 in here, which I'm assuming is just the weight. That feels about right. And the forging itself, you can see a little crack in here. Come on, there we go. Right in here at the tip there, there's a little bit of a crack. So I'm just gonna assume that this is some cheapo China thing, so I'm not really worried about it. As long as everything fits up right. I mean, it's not like I have any intended use for a fireman's axe. I just think they're cool. You know, it's just like one of them guy things. So we'll check the fitment here. It looks like it's a little snug, and that's something we can just sand and go. Might even be able to just get it to match. Oop. So it looks like it's actually gonna go without sanding or any sort of fitment issues. So this is something I learned from Wrangler Star. You got your axe head on there and you just pop the top of the handle. I'm gonna go ahead and back the camera up so that you guys can see this whole thing. All right, so you can see the head of that in there. It's almost there, right? So you just take a mallet of some sort. This is a dead blow. I don't know if I really need that. We'll try it with this. No, that's not heavy enough. You just pop the handle, the butt of the handle, and the head will actually slide up as you're going. Yeah, look at that, perfect. It's perfectly seated in there. And right where I want it, I think. Let's just make sure it feels and looks right. It looks pretty doggone good right there. I think that's exactly where I want that one. So now we'll get the other two set up. So that's a bit snug. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand down the neck right here just a smidge, because it doesn't seem like it wants to go all the way. See, it's just a smidge out around. That's honestly mostly the handle. It's definitely not a high-end handle. The oblong is actually not in line with the handle itself. Everything's half-assed these days, isn't it? Now we'll do this one the same way. I'm gonna start just a couple times by doing that, but then I'll finish it up the same way. Yep, perfect. Same thing. Pops it right through there, seats it, and I think the reason for this, at least the reason that makes sense to me, is if you smash it on the floor, you know, handle first, obviously you could damage the handle, the butt of the handle, but that amount of weight and force would probably push the hammerhead or axe head too far on it, whereas doing it this way, it seats it just right. Okay, so that's 2. Now let's grab this third one here, 6-pounder, sorry. And that one looks like it's probably just gonna fit right in. It already has a much better feel than the other 2 did. Probably would be smart to clean the inside of this out, but I'm not gonna bother. Again, I'm just gonna start it like this. Yep, and then finish it. It feels like it's already in place. Perfect, look at that. Very, very nice. Now that's gonna be a beaut of a nice 6-pound, somewhat short, not too big, not too small, good in-between hammer. Now these 2 over here, the first 2 I did, I like that stick out on the top here, you know, just over 1/4 inch on each. This one's slightly tapered, but that's okay. Now this one got over an inch on that one, so I'm going to cut that off down to about 1/4 inch. That way the wedge sits appropriately. Perfect. So now that one's pretty close to 1/4 inch as well. Now I can go ahead and get my wood wedges in there. Now these guys are the ones that I glue. Stuff a little bit of glue in there, jam that wedge in there, and then I let it sit overnight. Now this is just what I do. You definitely do not have to do this. It'll hold together just fine without glue. And this is just wood glue. And I actually hit my wedge with it a little bit too. Just a little bit. All right, and then I just tap this guy in. And I do let this guy drive as far as it can. Sometimes you do need a steel hammer, but basically as soon as you start hitting it with a steel hammer, it's gonna start smashing that wood up pretty good, which is fine. See, it already split. And since there's a little gap right here, I'm gonna go ahead and smash this one in here too. Looks like it's already as far as it's gonna go. All right, that one's good. I'm gonna I let this glue dry. Tomorrow I'll come back, cut it to where the height I want it, usually like just over 1/8, you know, not quite 1/4 inch. And this one will be done. So I'll finish that up on camera tomorrow. And we'll do the 8-pounder next. But I promise it'll work. Okay, so that one's in. I seriously doubt that's coming out. Cool, I'm gonna call that good. So I'm gonna let all 3 of these dry overnight and we'll catch y'all tomorrow. All right, everybody, so it's been a couple extra days. I got wrapped up with a whole bunch of stuff yesterday and a whole bunch of stuff today. Kids Fair Week with a fair lamb and this and this and that. I did end up getting another axe set up as well. I forgot that I had this really old Craftsman single bit, and I just put a little bit shorter handle on it. It had this handle on it, so obviously quite a bit shorter, but I like that. The edge on it was really chewed up, so I reprofiled the edge, and I think it just turned out amazing. I did sandblast it. I forgot to get the butt here, but other than that, this is gonna be great for just around the house, the yard. Might put this one in the tractor instead of the other one I got in the tractor right now. Anyway, I picked out all my steel wedges. We got the hacksaw ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and trim off the tops of these and then get our wedges installed. And then all we got left after that is to, actually I'm gonna switch this around, move the camera. After that, all we got is to one final, finish sanding just to give it a nice clean edge or a clean finish on the handle. And then from there, it'll just be throwing the linseed oil. So I don't know if we'll actually put that part on camera, but this part is pretty straightforward. And like I said, I go about 1/4 inch, a little bit, well, just under 1/4 inch, probably, maybe even call it an 1/8 inch. This one's kind of tough, but we'll get it. And that gives you a good amount of wood sticking out to get your wedge into. And personally, I like the way it looks. I don't mind a flush fit, but I like to have that little bit extra sticking out so that when it mushrooms out, when you put your steel wedge in there, it'll mushroom out and give you a good, solid, strong hold. I've never had one of these things come loose on me. Broke the handles, obviously, but not come off. Put these guys back in. And I grab onto it right just below the swell in the handle. And like I said, I'm using these jaw protectors or jaw pads, I guess you could call them. And they're plenty strong enough to hold this. So I put this guy in at, you know, not quite perpendicular. I put it in a little bit of an angle. Which one doesn't really matter. You kind of want to get a little bit of both the outside, the original handle wood, and the wedge itself. You don't want to go this way. You don't want to go in line with the wooden wedge. So we'll just kind of tap it in here, get it started. And that is unfortunate. It's following the grain of that wooden wedge. I don't like that at all. So I'm gonna change this up. I'm gonna grab some needle nose pliers too. So I'm gonna turn it 90 degrees, but then kind of put it at an angle so that it forces it into the hickory. Yeah, that's better. So now I know for sure it's going in that hickory handle and not just that silly soft wood that's in there, the first wedge. And I'll even go a little bit further to mushroom it out a little bit more. I'll use the ball peen side. Now that's not the prettiest job, no doubt about it. I think that's mostly because of the piece of junk wedge I used in there initially. So I think that turned out just fine. I don't like that, but it's tight. It ain't going nowhere. I'll do the other couple real quick. Okay, so off camera I went ahead and finished up the other sledgehammer. Again, not pretty, but it worked. And it really wouldn't hurt to put two in this. I'm gonna see if I've got two smaller ones. I'm gonna do the same thing for the fireman's axe. I'm gonna put two in it, but I thought initially that this one single would be enough, but I like the idea of two smaller ones a little bit better. Yeah, so I got two smaller ones here, and I think that's gonna be a much better hold, and it's gonna look good too. So put one back here at the thick end. Same thing, just a little further up. Now that I like. I think I want to counter them, get them just a little bit deeper in there. I'm gonna grab a punch. They don't really need to go that much deeper, but can't hurt. And then what I can do is kind of sand that down little by little and give it a really nice finish. The sledgehammers, I honestly don't care how pretty they are, but these axes, especially an old classic, good USA made tool, which I'm assuming this one is, it's got the old school craftsman symbol on it. So I'm assuming this was made in USA. So you see I countersunk them just a little bit, and then I'll be able to sand this down, and that will be really, really nice. And I'm not gonna sand it all the way flush to the steel, to the axe head. I'm just gonna sand it down enough to make it a nice finish on the top there. And then finally we got our big dog here. You can use any saw. I just like the hacksaw because it makes a nice clean cut, and it's easier to change the direction if you need to just a little bit to get a fairly even cut on it. Now it's starting to curve in a little bit, so I'm gonna flip it over and go from the other direction, and I can sand that smooth when I'm done. Perfect. So it's not perfectly even there, the cut, but it's close enough for me. And that, like I said, after I get the wedges in there, we'll go ahead and sand it down nice and smooth. All right, so same thing with this guy. I'm gonna put two bigger wedges, or two smaller wedges in two different places. I do have half a mind to put a bigger wedge here and a smaller wedge there. Yeah, let's do that. Since I got it, why not? So a bigger wedge at the wide end. All right, and then one smaller wedge. I'm going to inset these just a little bit, countersink them. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and sand these up real quick off camera. Turned out pretty good. Kind of same thing, I countersunk them just a smidge so that I can sand it down to that point. Okay, peoples, we're on to the final stage here. So everything's done. I'll scrape off this wood glue later. I'm not worried about that. It just peels right off. It's no big deal. I went through and used the palm sander to get the majority of the extra, crud from laying on the bench and the floor, that kind of stuff. Then I went back with a hand sanded it just to get a nice final feel. And I just used the 120 again. I'm not too worried about it being super smooth. Now we're gonna do a linseed oil bath for each one, or wipe down. I'm gonna hit both the handle and the top, and then I'll do one more coat probably tomorrow at some point after I'm done doing 50,000 other things. And this part goes quick. Smells good, at least to me. That's it, just give her a good wipe down, soak this wood, let it soak in. Like I said, I like to give it 2 coats. I say I like to, I've only done this a few times before, so take that with a grain of salt. I'm certainly no woodworking expert, but it seems to work out pretty good. And then, it is a little bit slick for the first couple times you use it, but once it gets weathered, holy cow, it's just a perfect finish. Weather resistant, water, sun, all that crap, and you don't have that slick shellac on there. I think I'm just gonna pour it straight on here. Yep, there we go. I wanna make sure I get the top of this coated really good. Certainly not worried about the metal. And it'll help seep in there a little bit too. Probably do the same thing right here. Let it get into that joint. And again, just remember, these aren't perfect. I didn't take the most time to do a super thorough fit up on it. These are just store-bought hickory handles, so they're not great. One thing I didn't mention earlier that I probably should have is that the grain on the end of these handles, actually I still have one handle left. I'll show you right quick. This is actually a terrible example here because of the shellac and shmoo and the cut and all that crap they put in there, you can't really see the grain of the wood, but you want the grain to go with the length of with the angle of the handle here. You don't want it going crossways. So like down here, you can see that grain, and it is going, with the direction of the handle for the most part. It's not perfect, but it's close, and the better you can get, or the closer to that direction you can get the grain up here, the better. The stronger your axe handle will be. This is soaking in really good right now. All right, one down. Go ahead and get the big dog done. This is the 8-pounder. I got a 12-pound sledge I'll have to show you all. I wonder if this cardboard's gonna spontaneously combust sitting here like this. I might set it outside. Check out AVE. He did a whole little mini series on a guy who tried to say that linseed oil soaked rag sitting in a trash can will self-ignite. And you can do this by hand too. You can just pour it right in your hand, put it right on there. I'm sure a lot of guys out there have this action down. All right, everybody, that does it for the first coat. The second coat's the same way. Once I'm done with that, we'll close out the video. All right, so it's been another couple days. Had a really busy weekend. I got videos coming out about a new toy I just picked up. Anyway, these guys have been sitting here for about 3 days. I did lather them up pretty good the day before yesterday. And here's our rag, and guess what? It has not spontaneously combusted, and it is soaking wet. Now, as far as our handles, I think they turned out absolutely amazing. Each one of them, even after being completely lathered up and dripping wet, is now basically dry to the touch. And I haven't wiped them down since then, but you can see it doesn't really leave anything on your hands. Completely soaked into the hammer. You can see how much is still left on the hammerhead, but the wood soaked all of that up, and they feel really, really nice. And this will give them a good protection to be weather resistant. Not that I leave my tools outside, but just something to keep in mind. This one, I think I might have put a little too much on. I still got a little bit of goo in here. It's kind of dry and tacky to the touch. I might give that a light sanding or even just a wipe down with a wet rag just to kind of remove a little bit of that. That is by far my favorite one. It's a really cool old Craftsman axe. You've seen it a couple times now. but they all turned out absolutely amazing. This one's just cool, even though I'm pretty sure it's just a China knockoff. It's just really cool. Well, there you go. Pretty easy to do, pretty simple. It is kind of time consuming, and if you do it right, I could have spent a little more time on the fit up, but I'm not that worried about it. They're gonna last for years and years and years unless I hit another stake with these sledgehammers. But now they're gonna be good, comfortable, weather resistant. So if you got any questions, please throw it down there in the comment section. I get back to everybody. Keep yanking on them bootstraps, and we'll catch you on the next video.